According to reports, Sarah Ferguson is broke, hides from the public eye, moves covertly between the residences of affluent ex-lovers, and switches between 3 different cell phones out of fear of being followed. We are witnessing one of the most spectacular declines in contemporary royal history, if even half of these assertions are accurate. For the former Duchess of York, this is more than simply another humiliating tabloid cycle. It's quieter, stranger, and possibly far more serious. As stated by, according to rumours circulating through British media and well-connected sources, Sarah has virtually vanished from her previous life. She is reportedly living what one insider called a secret sofa surfing world tour, moving covertly from one private estate to another, staying with friends who have enough money, privacy, and loyalty or discretion to keep their distance, and no longer making her familiar cheerful attempts to stay relevant through interviews or charity photo calls. Relationship with her outside of the media. The image being painted is neither one of deliberate retreat or glitzy rebirth. It depicts a woman who is truly distressed, vulnerable, exposed, and terribly unsure of what may happen next. This kind of disengagement represents an astounding reversal for someone who spent decades flourishing on visibility and charm, and the circumstances that are coming to light make it much more troubling. She is reportedly carrying 3 different phones and flipping between them out of worry. That she could be tracked down or observed, it reveals everything about her present mental state, regardless of whether that fear is based on fact or stems from paranoia. A person who lives comfortably or confidently would not act in this way. This person feels cornered, hunted, or at the very least extremely worried about who might be observing. Then there is her appearance, which is where the source's terminology starts to stand out. One insider characterized her as unkempt, asserting that she has given up on cosmetic procedures, stopped caring for her hair roots, and no longer exudes the polished, put-together look she spent years trying to convey. You could write such off as superficial rumors, but in the society Sarah lives in, status has always been determined by one's beauty. Being spotless conveys authority, self-assurance, and resource availability. Giving the impression that you have given up is an indication of something quite different. And whether it's fair or not, this is precisely how the circle she once traveled through, are used to read things. Sarah doesn't only appear worn out if the reports are true. She appears to be carrying a burden that she is unable to conceal. And those observing notice the change from a polished public figure to someone who is clearly having difficulties. Equally concerning is the financial picture that is being sketched. She has reportedly been asking friends, "How am I going to get through this?" publicly voicing financial concerns and even detailing herself as impoverished. An insider made a particularly scathing comment, saying that pals wouldn't be shocked if she began selling luxury handbags online in order to make ends meet. Even as a jest that conveys the tone of her current circumstances, even if it was exaggerated for effect. This is not the language of comfortable semi-retirement or regal luxury. This is the rhetoric of someone who is truly concerned about options, survival, and what happens when your safety nets fail. Dependable for years begin to deteriorate. Sarah Ferguson appeared to be nearly unbreakable in her capacity to recover from scandal for a considerable amount of time. The 1990s were marked by unrelenting public mocking, financial catastrophes, and tabloid humiliation. She continued to reinvent herself though. Book agreements, TV appearances, charity campaigns, there was always another angle, another comeback. Even after the disastrous 2010 sting operation in which she seemed to provide Prince access Andrew in exchange for money, an incident that ought to have put an end to her public career, but she was still able to get back into the narrative. Critics and onlookers alike were perplexed by her peculiar fortitude and survival skills. However, there is no sense of a premeditated comeback, which makes this time feel fundamentally different. There is no meticulously planned comeback, no media frenzy, and no new brand. Rather, we are witnessing a sort of collapse that feels much more intimate, as well as withdrawal and stillness. And much less dramatic than anything she's ever done. This is not a big scandal. This is slowly coming apart, which could be the reason it seems so much more serious. For many years, Sarah Ferguson's connection with Prince Andrew was the most intriguing and perplexing aspect of her existence. Despite living together intermittently for years after their divorce in 1996, they maintained a bond that defied reason and infuriated traditionalists. She frequently supported him in public, even though it appeared to harm her own standing. They portrayed themselves to the public as the happiest divorced couple in the world, an unusual but unbreakable bond. And despite how odd it appeared from the outside, it appeared to be effective for them. In a life generally characterized by instability and reinvention, Andrew served as her foundation, her fixed point, and the one thing that remained consistent. Insiders now assert that the bond is possibly irreparably harmed. According to reports, they are still in contact but are no longer living under the same roof and are not as unified as they once were. Roof no longer putting up that cohesive front. If accurate, that constitutes one of the biggest changes in the entire narrative. Because Sarah loses more than just her ex-husband in Andrew's absence. Her final genuine link to the organization that shaped her identity is lost. Even though she was formerly outside the palace walls, she no longer has the protective closeness that kept her close to the royal family. All of this is shadowed by the consequences of the Jeffrey Epstein affair, which never really goes away. The catastrophic 2019 Newsnight interview was more than just a PR blunder. It completely destroyed one's reputation. His public position was essentially eliminated, his military titles were taken away, and his patronages were eliminated. The taint persisted even after settlements were reached in court, and anyone who had a close relationship with him ran the risk of being pulled into the rubble. Sarah lived next to that scandal, but she did not start it. She may have sealed her own doom by standing up for Andrew when others distanced themselves even closer to his demise. Sources claim that she now feels resentful and deceived by royal family members, thinking she has been totally excluded and has no true way back in. It wouldn't be shocking if that were the case. Sarah had been on the periphery of the institution for years. She was helpful when the family needed comfort or a little relatability, but she was abandoned when things got messy. She was always in that awkward liminal state, never quite within or outside. Environment where loyalty was seldom rewarded and visibility brought peril. She follows a long line of people who learned too late that being close to royalty does not ensure security if she now feels abandoned. The person Sarah is said to have turned to for assistance, however, is arguably the most delightfully dramatic aspect of the whole story. Because some of the persons providing her with shelter are reportedly previous lovers from decades ago, in addition to being wealthy friends. Count Gadodella is one name that keeps coming up. She allegedly dated Gherardesca, an Italian aristocracy, following her divorce in the late 1990s. According to sources, she has been staying somewhere like to a castle while being looked after by this Italian count. If the music is genuine, it sounds more like something from a Gothic romance tale than it does like contemporary royal life. However, Sarah has always lived in a bizarre social environment where titles, wealth, and nostalgia blend together in ways that defy logic, and that kind of old-world aristocratic arrangement somehow fits in nicely. Traditional reasoning. Then there's Paddy McNally, the former executive in motor racing who she dated prior to her marriage to Andrew, the man that many people think she genuinely loved. According to reports, she has been residing at his Swiss chalet house. He also reportedly has residences in Verbia and St. Tropez, which provide plenty of covert possibilities for someone looking to blend in. Consider how amazing that appears from the outside. A woman who spent decades clinging to royal status after being married into the British monarchy. Significance, allegedly now relying on affluent friends and former boyfriends for privacy and shelter. In one sense, it sounds almost too dramatic to be true, but in another, it is entirely compatible with Sarah Ferguson's personality. She has never depended on official royal machinery or institutional power. She has depended on her charm, relationships, and the kindness of those who continued to like her despite the controversies. Her survival tactic has always been that, and it appears to be the last remaining safety net for her. Although charm can buy time, it cannot ensure stability. While friendship can offer safety, it is not always able to save lives. And that might be precisely where Sarah Ferguson is right now, torn between the heartbreaking truth that this kind of life is unsustainable and thankfulness for the few people who are still ready to assist her. Where does this stop then? That's the question that hangs over everything. Because, in contrast to her earlier controversies, this one does not appear to have an evident resolution or a distinct course of action. After everything that has transpired, she is unable to turn her life around and win back the favor of the royal family. She cannot continue to rely on the kindness of rich friends and former lovers. She will soon run out of places to go if she continues to move from castle to chalet to secret acreage. We might be witnessing the ultimate disintegration of a lady who spent her entire adult life attempting to remain close, rather than just another chapter in the lengthy and bizarre tale of Sarah Ferguson. To a society that never really embraced her. The fact that she fell from grace is not the tragedy, if you will. It's because she was never very graceful in the first place. She was constantly visible but never safe, tolerated but never accepted, and on the outside looking in. And now, in what could be the last act of her public life, she is exactly where she has always dreaded she would be, alone, unsure of how she would survive.